Here is a sweet illusion silently destroying the weak. It doesn't scream, it whispers that as long as you're kind enough, tolerant enough, gentle enough, the world will reward you with love, respect, and peace. You believe that if you're always patient with others, always giving in, always smiling and forgiving people will cherish you. Your life will be peaceful, you'll become the good person, but Machiavelli has a cold truth for you, a truth no one wants to hear, yet everyone needs to face that unconditional kindness is the shortest path to collapse. The more blindly kind you are, the more predictable you become, the more you give without calculation, the more you lose your power, and the more you crave to be loved by everyone. The easier you are to manipulate by the very people you're trying to please. Kindness is not a virtue, it is a blade, and only those who understand human nature know how to sharpen it and use it at the right time. In today's video, we're going to strip away the sweet mask of niceness and step into the ruthless but awakening world of Machiavelli, a world where power is not given to the pleasant but preserved through selectiveness, disciplinina, and strategic fear. If you've ever been taken advantage of because you were too kind, if you've been betrayed by the very people you once gave your all to, or if you simply want to understand how the psychology of power really works, then watch this video until the end. And if this message makes you think, hit the like button and subscribe, because here we don't tell stories to make you feel comfortable. We tell them to wake you up. People say kindness is good, but Machiavelli said kindness without calculation is stupidity. There's a rule most kind people never realize: when you give too easily, people don't thank you, they begin to treat it as your obligation. You offer your kindness unconditionally. They don't ask why, they just ask, what else do I get next? What once was a gift now becomes an expectation. And if you stop meeting that expectation, you're not met with understanding, you're met with judgment. Sounds familiar? That coworker you went out of your way to help, but when you refused to work late just once, they gave you side eyes. The lover you supported when they had nothing but the moment you stopped paying, they said you've changed. The cost of careless kindness is not gratitude. It's endless entitlement. Those who are unconsciously kind think they're planting seeds of goodness without realizing they're growing entitlement, a mindset that treats another person's sacrifice as something they deserve. They believe that softness brings peace, but in truth, they're sowing the seeds of resentment, because when people get used to being indulged, you're no longer seen as kind. You're seen as the one who owes them comfort, and when you stop providing it, you don't get compassion, you get attacked. Those who rule by emotion, by the desire to be loved, will eventually fall into this trap. They forgive too quickly, they give too much, and gradually they lose their own weight. At first they are praised, then they are expected. And when they can no longer give, they are no longer loved. They are resented because their kindness has become an obligation, and an obligation unmet always breeds anger. On the other hand, those who understand that kindness is a weapon, they don't use it to feel right. They use it to maintain control. They reward to create loyalty. They forgive to disarm enemies. They show humility to lower their opponent's guard. They give not because they're weak, but because they are setting a trap. That is the art of choosing, the art of strategy. The mindset of someone who knows if kindness is something everyone receives, then it has no value left when kindness becomes too cheap. It loses its weight, and the one giving it loses all power. You can be a good person, but if you have no standards, your own kindness will consume you. If you're tired of always being the one to step back, if you've sacrificed without being acknowledged, and if you're ready to reclaim your position, keep watching this video and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If this made you question the way you've been living, because we're about to enter the next chapter where kindness becomes a double-edged sword, and only those who know when to pull it back will survive the game of power. Kindness, if left unchecked, turns you into prey. But kindness, when sharpened like a sword, turns you into someone who cannot be defeated. Machiavelli didn't oppose kindness. He didn't advise you to be cruel. What he said was far more precise. Kindness is not a character trait. It is a tool, and tools must be controlled. Smart people don't give because they feel guilty. They give because it benefits them. They forgive not out of weakness, but because that forgiveness creates a debt. They are kind not to be labeled a good person, but to establish their position when they offer a reward. They are buying loyalty when they stay silent about a mistake they are planting. Unease, so the guilty live in fear of. Consequences yet to come when they treat a former adversary with grace. They're not surrendering, they're widening the distance so the enemy cannot predict what comes next. That's why real kindness is not softness, it's a calculated strike. A true leader doesn't need to be loved. They need to be calculated, and to make others calculate around you. You must be unpredictable. Now imagine this. You walk into a room, there are two men. One is always smiling, always kind, always patting you on the back. The other is quiet, calm eyes, a measured smile, and only speaks when needed. Who would you approach first? Most likely the first one. But who would you be more cautious around? Who makes you think before you speak? Who makes you adjust your tone even without a warning? It's the second one, and that is the power of strategic kindness. Those who understand this don't hand out kindness to everyone. They choose, they observe, and they know this simple truth. When you give too much, you dilute your own value, just like money loses worth when it's printed too often. Kindness loses weight when it's given without control. That's why those who receive rare rewards treasure them the most, because it's not a gift, it's an earned prize after a challenge. A strong man never has to say he's kind. Others will feel it precisely because not everyone gets to experience it. Kindness, when given selectively, becomes a silent power. It makes people strive, compete, and long for your recognition. Not because they want a reward, but because they want to prove they're worthy. And that's the key. You turn your presence into a standard at work. A leader who knows when to show kindness builds a powerful team in politics. A statesman who knows when to bend and when to stand firm stays in power through storms and love. A partner who limits softness keeps attraction alive. It all follows the same rule. Never let kindness become your reflex. Let it be your strategy. And if you can do that, your kindness will no longer be something people expect. It will be something people respect. If you feel worn out from giving too much and getting nothing back, if your kindness is starting to feel like a burden, maybe it's time you learn to hold the blade instead of always offering an open hand. Keep watching this video, because in the next part, we'll dive into one critical truth: why treating everyone fairly might just be the fastest way to destroy a system. And if you're searching for an awakening, don't leave without hitting like and subscribe, because what comes next will change the way you see kindness forever. Imagine you are a king each day. You hand out favors to everyone: the loyal, the traitors, the hardworking, the lazy. You do this because you believe in absolute fairness. You want to be remembered as a kind, generous king who treats everyone equally. But one day, the loyal guard who stood by your side for years begins to wonder, why should I stay loyal when the betrayer gets the same reward I do? And in the shadows, the traitor whispers, how easy, he's too weak to judge. I can keep playing both sides in that moment. What you thought was fairness is actually an act that blurs the lines between loyalty and betrayal, between effort and laziness, between those who deserve and those who simply demand. That's exactly what Machiavelli warns us about. Indiscriminate kindness is poison disguised as an angel. It makes you believe you're being loved, but in reality you are losing control in any power system. Whether it's a company, a government, or a family, the game must include both reward and consequence. There must be a clear hierarchy if everyone receives the same reward. You are no longer leading, you're handing out charity, and what comes from charity is rarely appreciated. A wise person never pours kindness like a rainstorm over a barren field. They water only the trees that need to grow, because they understand this: when you are kind to everyone, you are hurting those who truly deserve it. You make them doubt, you make them lose faith. They begin to ask, does my effort still matter? If the undeserving are treated just like me, and so you lose the motivation of the strong. You fuel the laziness of the weak. You destroy the power ecosystem. You work so hard to build worse than that. The sly ones, the opportunists, will sense that you lack the backbone to enforce justice. And that's when they come close, not to be loyal, but to place a blade behind your back. The truth is, no one respects someone who forgives too easily. No one reveres the one who gives kindness unconditionally, because they know that person is not dangerous. And if you're not dangerous, you are not feared. And without fear, you will never hold power. For long, unconditional kindness might win you love for a while, but it will never earn you respect. And the one who is not respected will be pushed aside, overlooked, and eventually replaced. That's why the wise leader asks, "Who deserves my kindness?" They don't hand it out, they bestow it with clear terms. They create a system where kindness is not a default but a reward for loyalty, competence, and true value. And because of that, their kindness becomes powerful. It makes others strive for it rather than sit and wait. Like emotional beggars, the one who throws kindness around recklessly is like someone tossing gold into the streets and expecting respect for being generous. But the one who uses kindness as a symbol of power leaves crowds silent, waiting for the moment he chooses to bestow it, because that recognition is rare, and what is rare is priceless. You don't need to stop being kind, but you need to become selective. Let your kindness be a blade sheathed in silence, only drawn when it truly matters and when it appears. Let everyone hold their breath, because they know this is not weakness. This is power, wearing the mask of kindness. If you've ever found yourself being kind to everyone just to keep the peace, ask yourself, did that peace make you stronger or did it make you weaker? And if you're ready to reclaim respect, keep watching. Because next we'll enter the realm of true strategy, how to turn kindness into a weapon of influence, not a burden of guilt. And if you haven't done it yet, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any psychological power lessons in this series. There's a common mistake made by people who want to be liked. They believe that if they win others' hearts, they will earn loyalty, that if they make people admire them, those people will never turn their backs, that if they are loved, they'll walk side by side until the end. Machiavelli called that the illusion of the weak because affection is the most fragile thing in the world. It sparkles, but it doesn't last. It's sweet, but easily swayed. Someone may love you today, but will they still love you when you say no? When you refuse to help? When you no longer make them feel comfortable? They don't love you. They love the feeling you give them. And the moment that feeling fades, their love vanishes like smoke. Here's the truth. The ones who are loved the most are not always respected, but the ones who are respected, they always make others keep a certain distance. That's what creates order. And if you want to earn that respect, you need boundaries. Boundaries draw the line between what's allowed and what's not, between giving because you want to and giving because others expect it. People without boundaries live in a constant spiral of obligation, exile, John, and endless sacrifice. But those with boundaries live in clarity. They carry weight and they are respected. Have you ever met someone like this? A person who always says yes, always helps, always on your, always pleases everyone. At first they're admired, but over time, others begin to treat them like a doormat, a stepping stone, a life raft used in emergencies, then tossed aside once the storm is over. And when that person finally gets angry and demands fairness, what do people say? Why are you so moody? All of a sudden you used to help all the time. Why not now? Is this your true face coming out? That's the price of living without boundaries. You won't be appreciated. You'll only be expected. And when you fail to meet those expectations, you become the bad guy, even to the ones you gave your all to. On the other hand, those with clear boundaries create a completely different effect. Their kindness is selective, their promises carry weight, and their presence holds value. People don't take them lightly. They don't make careless demands. And if they're helped by them, they feel honored, not entitled. Boundaries are not coldness. They are how you protect your self-worth. They're how you tell the world, I'm not here to be loved. I'm here to be respected. Machiavelli once wrote, a ruler doesn't need to be loved, but must be feared. I would add, if people aren't afraid to disappoint you, you'll never hold a place in their hearts. Remember this. Affection changes with emotions, but respect comes from clear standards and consistent actions. When people know you're capable of saying no, they begin to think twice before asking. When they know your standards are high, they begin to adjust their behavior. And when they realize you won't forgive endlessly, they begin choosing loyalty over exploitation. If you've been hurt because you wanted so badly to be liked, it's time to stop, build a different version of yourself. One that sets limits, demands respect, and says no without guilt. Because only when you can say no will your yes carry real value. If you saw yourself in this part, drop a like. To let me know you're listening with your heart, and hit subscribe so we can continue walking this path of inner rebirth together. A path for those who refuse to live controlled by others, expectations in the next part. I'll reveal how the smartest people use kindness as a psychological trap to win over, manipulate, and even bring enemies to their knees. Here's a harsh truth about human nature. People aren't loyal to you because you're kind. They're only loyal when they believe they have no better option. Sounds painful. That's why kindness can never create lasting loyalty. It only creates expectations. The more you give, the more people expect. The more you sacrifice, the more they assume you'll always be there. And then one day, when you no longer have the strength to keep going, you won't receive understanding. You'll receive blame. This world doesn't remember how much you gave it, only cares whether you're still useful. You think kindness is the way to keep people close. They'll leave when you no longer make them feel comfortable. They'll walk away when someone else gives them more. And that pain, you feel it won't come from their departure. It will come from the realization that their affection was never built on respect. It was built on benefit. Machiavelli never taught us to be cruel. He taught us to see human nature clearly without illusion. He said loyalty is not built on love. Loyalty is built on structure, boundaries, and discipline. When an army lacks training, it scatters the moment battle begins. When a child has no limits, they take everything for granted. And when a community has no discipline, chow becomes inevitable. You can love the people who follow you, but if you want them to stay, you must train them. You must show them what is allowed and what is not. You must make them understand that loyalty is not a default. It's the result of tests, effort, and commitment. Only through discipline can loyalty be built on a solid foundation. You don't need a large crowd behind you. You need the ones who've been tested and didn't walk away because they know who you are, because they paid a price to stay. And that price is what makes betrayal harder for them to justify. Kindness is easily forgotten. Discipline is not because discipline creates one thing. Value people don't respect what comes too easily, but they will fight for what made them, sweat, cry, and grow in an environment without standards. Opportunists sneak in, the lazy survive, and the competent walk away because no one wants to give their best in a place where effort isn't acknowledged, betrayal isn't punished, and everyone is treated the same. You can be kind to everyone, but you should only keep those who are worthy and to know who's worthy. You must test them with time, with responsibility, with the refusal to indulge unreasonable demands. Loyalty is born in pressure and trials, in those moments when someone had every reason to leave but chose to stay. If you've ever felt betrayed, look back and ask yourself, what standards did you set for others? Or did you simply give without boundaries? Remember, unbounded giving breeds betrayal, but discipline selects the truly loyal. Don't seek loyalty through kindness. Find it in those who endured with you, those who didn't run when you drew the line, and those who stayed, even when you stopped saying yes to everything. If you're trying to build something that lasts, whether it's a business, a community, or a relationship, start with discipline, not kindness. If this part awakens something in you, tap like and hit subscribe so you can walk with me through the deeper lessons ahead. There's a truth many people refuse to believe because it feels too cold. Affection is the easiest thing to betray. It has no structure, no rules. It is built entirely on emotions, and emotions, as you know, change faster than the weather. You could do everything right, every kind act, every genuine word of care, only to wake up one day and because of a single no, a single unmet expectation, they walk away leaving you with the painful question, what did I do wrong? But you did nothing wrong. You simply built loyalty on the foundation of affection, and that foundation is never strong enough to hold anyone in place. Machiavelli understood this early on. He said, if you must choose between being loved and being feared, choose to be feared. Why? Because affection only exists when you're pleasing others, but fear exists even when they don't like you. Someone who loves you today can hate you tomorrow, but someone who fears disappointing you, who fears crossing your boundaries, who fears the consequences you've made clear will hold back, not because they love you, but because they know the rules of the game. Fear creates boundaries, and boundaries are what make people behave. You don't need to threaten. You don't need to yell. You don't need to become a tyrant. You only need to let people know I'm kind, but I'm not someone you can walk over. I'm patient, but I won't hesitate to act when necessary. And just like that, your presence begins to create order. When people know you have boundaries, Binary bliss and clear consequences for betrayal. They won't dare to test you, not because you're hated, but because you can't be controlled. And in their eyes, the ones who can't be manipulated are the most dangerous. Ironically, the more someone tries to be loved by all, the weaker they appear. But the one who sets firm boundaries is the one who commands respect and alters behavior. Affection keeps people near when everything is good, but fear keeps them loyal, even when they're unhappy. A team that loves their leader but fears no consequence for failure will fall apart at the first sign of chaos. But a team that respects the consequences of disloyalty, even if they don't always like their leader, will hold the line. Because fear doesn't need to be fed every day. It only needs to be proven once you can forgive. But let people know my forgiveness is a choice, not a duty. They must understand that if they abuse your kindness, your warmth can turn into ice affection, leaves you vulnerably. Fear keeps you safe. Not fear from violence, but fear born of clear boundaries, consistent behavior, and the unshakable sense that you cannot be manipulated. If you've ever felt abandoned after giving your all, remember this: you weren't betrayed because you were bad. You were betrayed because you never set limits from the start. And if you want to build an image that can't be broken, stop chasing affection. Start building respectful fear, because affection is like the wind, but respect is the foundation. If this truth struck a chord within you, drop a like and hit subscribe to continue this journey toward building unshakable inner power, where no one's departure can ever break you again. There's one word modern society deeply fears: harshness. It's misunderstood. It's labeled as something used by tyrants, ruthless bosses, and cold-hearted parents. But Machiavelli taught the opposite. Harshness is not cruelty, it is clarity. And in a world where everything is being melted by emotion, clarity is the rarest thing of all. You can't hold an army together with kindness. You can't run a family, an organization, or a nation with a soft heart. Not because people are evil, but because people will always test limits without clear boundaries. They will push further without real consequences. They will start playing games with order, and by the time you finally act, it's too late. Trust is lost. His structure has dissolved. A single act of harshness delivered at the right time can save an entire system. But prolonged softness will quietly kill it from the inside out. Imagine a leader who always wants to be loved, who wants everyone to feel comfortable, who delays hard decisions because they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Sounds noble, right? But what happens? The lazy push boundaries, the disloyal go unpunished. The loyal lose faith, the competent start walking away, and what was once called compassion becomes fertile soil for chaos to grow. On the other hand, the one who dares to act decisively, the one who isn't afraid to be disliked for making tough calls, is the one who preserves order. Because that person understands one truth: emotion must surrender to principle. Punishment isn't about revenge, it's a warning. It's the fire that burns away laziness, betrayal, and silent disorder. A fair punishment, delivered at the right moment, speaks louder than 1,000 calls for love. You may call it cruelty, but here's the truth: where there is no harshness, there are no limits. And without limits, destruction becomes inevitable. A father who sets no rules will watch his child lose direction. A leader who avoids consequences will watch loyalty fall apart. Harshness isn't a whip that strikes people down. It's the frame that holds the system upright. It protects the loyal. It deters the opportunists, and most importantly, it sends one clear message: there are laws here, and they will be enforced. A society, a family, a team is only truly strong when each member fears doing wrong, not fear of being insulted, but fear of the consequences that will come. If you've ever hesitated when you needed to act firmly, remember this: too much kindness doesn't earn respect, it makes you look weak. If you're the one in charge, the leader, the one holding things together at home or at work, know this: you won't always be loved, but you must always be respected. And if this message woke something up inside you, tap like and hit subscribe so you can continue this journey of becoming the kind of person who upholds order in a world that's crumbling under too many feelings and far too few principles. The modern world is full of hollow advice. Be kind to everyone. Be likable. Let love lead the way. It sounds noble, It sounds right, but Machiavelli would look you in the eye and say bluntly, the man who tries to be loved by everyone will be ruled by those he tries to please. Because the more likable you are, the easier you are to dismiss, the more predictable you become, the easier you are to exploit, and the more unconditional your kindness, the more you lose the right to be respected. The world doesn't need another pleasant man. It needs someone who knows when to withhold kindness, who sets limits, and who is willing to become terrifying when pushed to the edge. You don't need to be cruel, but you do need to be someone others don't dare to test. You don't need to raise your voice, but your gaze should be calm enough to make someone stop mid-sentence. You don't need to threaten. Sometimes your silence alone should make others ask themselves, what did I just do wrong? That is real power. It doesn't come from muscle, money, or titles. It comes from your ability to control your kindness. The more you give away kindness, like someone desperate for acceptance, the more meaningless that kindness becomes. The more you try to be loved, the more hated you'll be the moment you say no. And in the end, you're no longer yourself. You become a weak imitation of the expectations others have placed on you. The one to fear is not the man who is always angry. It's the man who is always calm, but whose next move you can never predict. He doesn't forgive easily, but when he does, you know you've been granted something rare, and you won't dare to make the same mistake again. You don't need the whole world to love you. You only need a small circle of people willing to stay loyal because they understand you are fair, but not weak, cold, but with reason. And your kindness is something to earn, not something handed out for free. Remember this, the likable man must constantly please everyone. The feared man only needs to stand there and people will adjust themselves. The likable man is exhausted, always maintaining the image. The feared man is respected because he doesn't need to perform. And if you must choose, don't choose to be loved. Choose to be respected. Don't choose to please. Choose to control. Don't be the man who is kind to everyone only to be walked on because he never learned to say no. Be the man no one dares to underestimate because they know your silence is more dangerous than 1,000 threats. If what I said just made you reflect on yourself, tap like and hit subscribe to continue this journey of mastering power psychology. Because the likable are forgotten, but the feared are remembered by history.